today I'm going to explain why if you are looking into buying a laptop for work/productivity, you should absolutely go out and get the MacBook Pro 13-inch from this year. So, why should you? Let's find out. Ooh, that was a little harder than I wanted to. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. We released a video with my recommendations on which options you should take if you do get the MacBook Pro 13, and this is the spiritual successor to that video. The aim of today is to not be objective. Today we're gonna be as biased as heck because this is my computer, I use it for daily work, and I love it. I love it, and I'm gonna share that enthusiasm with you because, again, you should buy one of these. Let's get to it. The very first reason why you should buy a MacBook Pro is easy. This is the cheapest brand new MacBook Pro you can get. Wow. Video over. Lights are off, we're done. Side note, I also don't recommend the MacBook Air for people actually looking to get serious work done. That's like a web browsing computer. Normally when I talk about gear, I'm a very big fan of buying refurbished or used gear. Most of the equipment that I use for this YouTube channel is both used or refurbished. However, the updates to this computer, some of which we'll get into here in just a little bit, are so good that I'd recommend not getting the older model unless that's all you could afford was a refurbished version of that. You can get this base model 13-inch MacBook Pro for $1299. This does include an 8th generation quad-core i5 chipset, which, thanks to Intel's incremental approach to their chipset design, means that you aren't actually that far off in power from their newest sets. 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, okay, I do really wish this was DDR4 RAM, and a 256 gigabyte solid state drive, and that very brand new Magic Keyboard, which I'm gonna do my best to restrain myself from just not talking about that this entire video. So those specs might not sound like a lot. In fact, sound kind of meh. There's not even a graphics card in this thing, and when you think about a Windows machine, you could get more specs for the same amount, but this leads into the second reason you should get this MacBook, the power. Wait, what? The specs are meh. How can you say the power is good, Gary? Gary, how are you gonna say that? Easily, look, easily watch. The power is good. Real good. Wow, that was easy. Man, we can get through this together. Seriously though, and as somebody that dabbles in both the Windows world and the Mac world, I own both devices, I'm never, ever wowed or really all that impressed when I see an Apple product's spec sheet. But I'm almost always impressed at how well they're able to optimize the spec sheet that they do have. And that kind of begs the question, how much power do you actually need? If you are doing daily tasks like word processing, web browsing, note-taking, spreadsheet generating, that's what spreadsheets do, right? They generate. You are only ever gonna need to use a certain amount of that processor anyway, so I don't recommend going out and buying a bunch of specs that you aren't going to use. And if you do want to do a little bit heavier task like video editing, gaming, etc., what's on display here in the base model 13 is more than enough. I've referenced this video a few times because I feel like it's really just like what proves my point, but we already made a video where we edited some pretty tough 4K video files through this computer, and while it did great in the edit, that wasn't very surprising to me, it also did remarkably well in the render. This has a Cinebench score in the mid 1600s, so even though this is the cheapest MacBook Pro you can buy, it's not weak. This is not a weak machine. The third reason to buy the MacBook Pro 13 is kind of tied in with the second one. It's one of the unique features about MacBooks that you don't really appreciate until you need it. And the actual power of this computer, the power you get on display here, is the same whether or not you are plugged into the wall. You have the exact same performance if you happen to be in a situation where you can't actually snag a wall outlet. This feature, this fact, is actually pretty huge for me when I'm traveling, because even though I'm traveling, that doesn't mean I get to relax. I always need to continue doing something, whether I'm doing edits on a video, doing some photoshopping for a thumbnail, or just it's nice to have a consistent experience across the board, which is something Apple doesn't get enough credit for. When you use this machine, wherever you are, you will have a reliable experience, and that leads to being more productive as you don't have to rearrange your expectations or your requirements or what you think the machine's gonna do wherever you are. Your workflow will be the same wherever you are physically located. Until the battery dies. It sounds like a small thing. I know that sounds like a small thing, and I'm sure the Windows machines have some kind of power boost mode that you can use, but it's the smallest friction points that add up over time, and you don't have to worry about those here. The next thing I'm gonna tee up on why you should buy this computer is the keyboard. He's talking about the keyboard again. Yes, but I promise I'm not gonna go on too long about it. We'll just get the facts. We'll say why you should buy it, and then we'll move on. I love this new Magic Keyboard, and by itself, it's the reason I wouldn't recommend an older or refurbished MacBook Pro if you can help it. This keyboard totally changes this device from a good laptop to a great laptop. I love everything about it. I find myself using this computer for more and more things if I'm at my house. Even sitting down in front of my iMac Pro, I will prefer to whip this computer out and type on it because I really just like type. I enjoy the experience. And it's not just the keyboard that makes this so good. Like I said, I've got other brands of computers in the house. I've got 2 Dells in the house right now, and Apple really makes interacting with the computer a joy. And one of the big reasons of that is the actual palm rests on the body of the laptop. Not only does it house this gigantic trackpad, more on the trackpad in a second, but it lets you put, can you see this? It lets you put all of your palm and most of your wrist on the body of the laptop. So while you're typing or you're browsing or whatever you're doing, your hands and wrists are always in a comfortable, neutral position. Maybe that's not something you youngsters out there will appreciate, but as somebody that's been working in an office type capacity and environment for about 5 years running now, ergonomics are a huge part of what makes using these computers not only comfortable, but also safe. And that's important if you aren't trying to get carpal tunnel before you turn 30. Like doing this on a normal keyboard, that hurts after a while. It's just so much nicer that you can spread out, and it's a comfortable experience. Wow, the keyboard's so good, how can we even top that? Well, let's talk about that trackpad for a second. Look at how big this trackpad is. It's like most of the body of this computer. This is probably the only trackpad that I actually really like on computers. It's the one that I really actually use. It's not solely the realm of this specific MacBook Pro 13. It also exists on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro 16, but this trackpad is gigantic, and yet it's so big, their software is able to work in such a way that when you are typing on the computer and inevitably your palm rests on the trackpad, it doesn't move the mouse around, which let's just say if that was the case, like the computer would be practically unusable. I mean, did you see how big that trackpad was? I'd have to be at like a very uncomfortable angle to make that work for anything. So thankfully, I don't have to. Plus, and this is the thing that is shared across both the MacBook and the Magic Trackpad, the gestures on Apple's devices are pretty powerful and they work here too. Yes, they do take some research time to hunt them all down because some of them are not things that you would normally do in the course of using a computer, like 3 fingers to swipe up to bring up the active windows, and like I don't even know what to call this, but like the one-hand clapping motion to bring up the application list. Once you do though, once you've dug in there and you do understand the gestures, they are pretty darn powerful, and it's nice that they work with this trackpad. I think this is the 4th. I've kind of lost count. The 4th reason you should get the MacBook Pro 13 is the versatility that this as a platform, less as a laptop, but this is a platform allows. As we've already seen in this video, you can very easily use the MacBook Pro in laptop mode anywhere. I've used this, well, not this specific one, but last year's model on airplanes, in coffee shops, at tech events, in hotels, in buses, everywhere. This thing, like the MacBook Pro 13, comes with me everywhere. But the versatility with that is with just a dongle or two, you can convert this from like the ultimate portable workstation into a serious desktop device too. Thunderbolt 3 is probably my favorite port connector of all time, besides SD card slots, Apple, because you can have power delivery, data transfer, monitor support, all of that through one port. Meaning that instead of having to have a mess of cables, you just need one device with a plug to plug into this thing. You can have your display, mouse, and keyboard, and it keeps it clean. This again was my setup for a few months last year as I was traveling, and the only problem I really had to deal with was slower render times. Editing was fine, photo editing was fine, everything else worked. I'm willing to accept that to not need to drag along a bigger device. One thing though, on that note that I will mention is to get the absolute best thermal performance out of the MacBook Pro 13 in that situation is to use it as a secondary screen. I would always keep the screen open just to make sure that more air can vent through there. Or you can get the upper tier model for the extra fan and cooling support. And the 5th and final reason why you should get a MacBook Pro 13 is really only if you aren't currently using a MacBook or you don't currently have an Apple computer. And again, as we make these Apple videos, I know that this is starting to happen more often, and I'm gonna sound like a snob when I say this. I do apologize in advance because this is 100% an Apple snob thing to say, but the ecosystem of Apple devices, when you pair an Apple Watch, iPhone, and iPad, it's just so good. Like, it's so great that it all works together. It's very easy, and the biggest one is probably AirDrop. It's so easy to share files across devices without needing to pair an external device. You don't have to copy something to a card or to an external drive to transfer. You just open AirDrop, drag, drop, and you're done. I love it. I love it. I use that all the time. I don't even know how to exist without it anymore. You can also do things like use your Apple Watch, which mine is charging right now. You can use that for verification. So your Mac is unlocked as soon as you open it because it's verified it because it's connected to your Apple Watch. And you can do that without needing to take the whole extra 1 second to press the fingerprint reader. How fast? How fast? It's also, I mean, it's a meme at this point, but Apple devices are greater than the sum of their parts. But what's great is their parts are fantastic too. Don't get me wrong, I individually really enjoy my iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, iMac. Wow, I'm realizing some things about myself making this video. I also own Windows machines and I enjoy using them too. But when it comes to actual work, the usability here cross devices is second to none and is a very big part of why you, again, should buy the MacBook Pro 13. You should buy one, by the way. And if you liked this video and you agreed with me, you're like, Gary, Everyday Dad, I agree with you, I'm gonna go out and buy one. Here's a link to the video where I break down all of the options and I make some recommendations to people on which models and which upgrade paths you should take when you do eventually buy one. And you can find that by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.